This is the lecture preparation for July 31st, 2016, the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. We begin with a reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm on page 224 in your workbook. So right off the bat, there's a name which is so foreign to English that when you see it, you really don't know what to do with it. Koheleth. So it really slides off your tongue fairly easy, but it would be one that I would encourage that you practice. And the pronunciation is over to the left, Koheleth. So right over there on the left of the page, it has some hints on how to read this. And there's always, whenever there's repetition, then you need to do something with the second one. Usually, it's repeated to emphasize, and actually I'm going to jump right now over to the next page on 225 in the box there. It says to keep in mind, and it talks about building, but it's kind of the same idea. To build refers to increasing vocal intensity as you work towards a climatic point in the text. This is, in musical terms, it's more like a crescendo. It calls for intensified emotional energy, which can be communicated by an increase or decrease in volume, or by speaking faster or slower. The point is to show more passion, greater urgency, or concern. So it's similar when you're doing when you have a repeated phrase. You want to emphasize it either by making it greater or less, but you don't want to do it the same way. So there's the vanity of vanities, and then it repeats vanity of vanities. You can't do it the same way, or it'll just fall flat. Okay, so then it continues. The attitude underlying these lines is cynical and pessimistic, and I'll get into that when we go to the bottom, the commentary at the bottom. And you want to avoid anger. When you're there, don't want to really get mad. You do further on want to convey frustration. The last line, again, musically, you always want to kind of come to a cadence, a conclusion. So that last line, this also is vanity. You need to draw it to a close with the way that you speak, and generally that's going to be slower and intense. So I wrote a note to myself about, actually, I'll tell you about that note later. Let me go ahead and read to you what is at the bottom, where it says reading 1. Ecclesiastes is the Greek translation of the Hebrew name of the book. Koheleth, I'll say it again, Koheleth, and you should really repeat that several times. It means a gathering of students or collector of wisdom. Singular pessimistic perspective, this book seems foreign to everything else said in the Bible. Sorry about that, it's early in the morning for me. While an occasional ray of sunlight breaks through the author's gloom, the book's overall message reeks of skepticism and argues against finding any lasting value in the things of human life, not money, nor fame, nor pleasures, nor the possessions we strive so hard to acquire. Like the mid-20th century European absurdist playwrights, the author sees life as futile and pointless. Death awaits us all, and death, it was believed at that time, led to Sheol, a neutral place of neither punishment nor reward. It's no wonder that this is the only appearance of Ecclesiastes in the Sunday lectionary. So why would you think this book would even be in the Bible? Well, Ecclesiastes balances the sometimes overly positive and self-assured attitudes expressed elsewhere in the wisdom literature. But what's important to remember is that it is written by a person of faith. There is no denying the truth that nothing in life endures. We can't take our wealth or fame with us, nor our favorite possessions. Jesus will say the same in today's gospel. It's a sobering point, but it reminds us that life, as good as it can be, is ultimately a stepping stone into eternity and to new, abundant life. So that what I was going to tell you later, as I was reading the description, I thought of the Winnie the Pooh character, Eeyore. You know, he was always saying, "Oh, I don't know, I just don't want to go over there because it's too hot." You know, it kind of reminds me of that reading. So I'm not going to read it like Eeyore, but I'll kind of remember him a little bit. A reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, says Koheleth. Vanity of vanities. All things are vanity. Here is one who has labored with wisdom and knowledge and skill, and yet to another one who has not labored over it, he must leave property. This also is vanity and a great misfortune. What profit comes to man from all the toil and anxiety of heart with which he has labored under the sun? All his days, sorrow and grief are his occupation. Even at night, his mind is not at rest. This also is vanity. The word of the Lord. I'm going to skip over to the gospel now. The second reading actually is related, but I'm going to go directly to the gospel because it really is more pointed in that way. The commentary begins on page 225. The echoes of Ecclesiastes can be heard in this gospel text, but their impact is quite different here. First, Jesus refuses to arbitrate the quarrel between brothers, a quarrel born of greed that has become a wedge between siblings who should value their love and oneness above their possessions. Jesus draws an object lesson from this fracture and warns that possessions don't substitute for the real stuff of life. Jesus' parable could have been taken right out of Koheleth's playbook. His lead character has a problem any landowner would envy. Where shall I put all my bounty? His tone should suggest the enviable nature of his situation as he imagines building his larger barns, safely storing his abundant harvest, and sees himself kicking back in self-congratulatory delight. In the midst of the rich man's revelry, Jesus introduces a jarring, sobering note as God's voice chides him for his foolishness in thinking that his worldly goods could provide lasting security, and for forgetting where true security lies. Jesus' final line might seem most appropriate for those who sleep in on Sundays and seldom darken the church doors, but even those in church can lapse into righteous conviction that their attendance and their envelope ensures, perhaps requires, God's reward. Blindness to what matters to God can occur within as well as outside the walls of the church. A blunt delivery that reveals what is at stake will serve this text far better than any attempt to soften its tone. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" Then he said to the crowd, Take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions. Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have the space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods, and I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for all who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord. Okay, we're moving back now to the second reading to the Colossians. And commentary at the bottom. Chief difference between today's readings from Ecclesiastes and this text from Paul is that Paul offers a clear alternative to the things of this world that he said leads to futility and meaningless. Like Koheleth, Paul tells us worldly things don't sustain us and don't endure. In baptism, we experience the saving death of Christ, that he died once for all on Calvary. But baptism also gave us a share in his resurrection and calls us to raise our eyes heavenward, where we find the things of everlasting life rather than the corrupt things of this world that lead to destruction. Our new life with Christ is hidden from the world that doesn't understand us, and from the devil who would take it from us. Sometimes it's even hidden from ourselves when we lose heart or when God's love seems distant. But our new life resides in Christ, and when he is revealed in glory, so shall we be. It only makes sense, then, to put to death those earthly things that lead to death: immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire. Paul calls for a radical rejection of these inclinations that come from our sinful nature. Like a cancer, they are to be removed. He uses clothing imagery to remind us of what we have taken off and put on. The passage ends with a joyful declaration that differences have been removed. It's our oneness in Christ that makes us distinct, not our differences in color or nationalities. Proclaim that message with eye contact and delight, and don't rush the climactic final line. A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Colossians. Brothers and sisters, if you were raised with Christ, seek what is above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Think of what is above, not of what is on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, your life, appears, then you too will appear with him in glory. Put to death, then, the parts of you that are earthly: immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and the greed that is idolatry. Stop lying to one another, since you have taken off the old self with its practices, and you have put on the new self, which is being renewed for knowledge in the image of its Creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcision and uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. The word of the Lord. Thank you all very much. I hope your summer is going well, and you can stay cool and be renewed by the nice monsoon storms which come by to refresh us now and then. God bless you all.